Margaret lowered her voice. Richard signed the agreement before his surgery. If you refuse, the legal consequences could destroy what's left of the company. Isabella felt trapped. Everything she had worked for, her reputation, her future, her freedom, all slipping away. And now she was being forced into marriage with a man she'd never even seen. The next morning, Isabella drove herself through heavy fog toward the edge of town. Expensive skyscrapers slowly disappeared behind her as the roads became narrow and cracked. Eventually she reached a small quiet neighborhood lined with aging houses. This cannot be happening, she thought bitterly. When she finally stopped outside Daniel Hayes' house, she froze. The tiny home looked old but clean. Toys covered the small front yard. A bicycle leaned against the porch rail. And then the front door opened. A little girl around 6 years old came running outside laughing. "Daddy! Daddy! Look, the flowers bloomed." Behind her stepped a tall man wearing faded jeans and a simple grey shirt. His dark hair was slightly messy, and his face carried the exhaustion of someone who worked too hard and slept too little. But his eyes were calm, gentle, and strangely powerful. Daniel looked at Isabella quietly for several seconds before walking toward her. "You must be Isabella." She crossed her arms coldly. "And you're Daniel." The little girl smiled brightly. "Hi. I'm Sophie." She expected desperation, embarrassment, maybe even greed. But Daniel showed none of it. He simply opened the gate. "You should come inside." Sophie baked cookies. The small house was surprisingly warm. Family photos covered the walls. Sophie talked non-stop while Daniel quietly prepared tea in the kitchen. Isabella watched him carefully. There was something unusual about him. Despite living in poverty, he carried himself with confidence. His posture was disciplined. His movements controlled. Even the way he spoke sounded educated. Nothing about him matched the image she expected. Still, she refused to soften. "So what exactly do you do for work?" she asked sharply. Daniel glanced at her. "I manage a few businesses." She nearly laughed. "Businesses? Right." Before he could answer, Sophie tugged Isabella's sleeve. "Daddy works all the time," she whispered proudly. "Sometimes important people come see him late at night." Daniel gently interrupted. "Sophie." The little girl giggled and ran off. Isabella rolled her eyes internally. Important people probably meant debt collectors. After an awkward silence, Daniel finally spoke. "You should know something before this marriage happens." She looked up impatiently. "I never asked for this arrangement either." That caught her off guard. "My wife died 3 years ago," he continued quietly. "Since then, Sophie has been my only priority. I agreed because your father's health is failing and because our families made a promise long ago." Isabella studied him carefully. For the first time, she noticed sadness hidden behind his calm expression. But she pushed the feeling away. "This marriage will be temporary," she said firmly. "Once my family stabilizes financially, we'll divorce." Daniel nodded without hesitation. "If that's what you want." 3 days later, they were married in a small private ceremony. No reporters. No glamorous wedding. No luxury decorations. Just silence. Isabella wore a simple white dress while Daniel stood beside her holding Sophie's hand. As the wars ended, Isabella felt absolutely nothing. No love. No hope. Only humiliation. The media exploded when news broke that Isabella Carter had married an unknown poor single father. Headlines mocked her endlessly. From billionaire fiancé to broke dad. Carter heiress falls from grace. Desperate marriage saves family fortune. Her former friends disappeared instantly. Socialites whispered behind her back. Even strangers online mocked her. And through all of it, Daniel remained strangely calm. Every morning he woke early to prepare Sophie for school. Every evening he cooked dinner himself. He treated Isabella respectfully but never forced conversation. Sometimes she caught him quietly reading financial reports late at night. Other times mysterious black cars appeared near the house before driving away again. None of it made sense. One evening, Isabella returned home exhausted after another brutal day at the company. Investors were threatening lawsuits. Employees feared layoffs. She entered the kitchen expecting silence. Instead, she found Daniel helping Sophie with homework while dinner simmered on the stove. Sophie smiled brightly. "Daddy made your favorite pasta." Isabella frowned. "How would he know my favorite food?" Daniel answered casually without looking up. "Your assistant mentioned it during a phone call." Again, that strange attention to detail. During dinner, Isabella's phone suddenly rang. Her face turned pale after answering. "What?" she whispered. Daniel immediately noticed. "What happened?" She lowered the phone slowly. "Our biggest investor pulled out. We're finished." For several seconds, silence filled the room. Then Daniel calmly asked, "How much do you need?" She laughed bitterly. "You can't help." "Tell me anyway." $200 million. Sophie nearly choked on her juice. But Daniel simply nodded thoughtfully. "I see." That night Isabella cried alone in the bedroom, believing everything was over. The next morning, her company's board members called in shock. An anonymous investor had purchased the failing contracts overnight and injected enough capital to save the entire corporation. Nobody knew who did it. But Daniel looked unusually tired at breakfast. Isabella stared at him suspiciously. "You know something about this?" He sipped coffee calmly. "No." Yet for the first time, doubt entered her mind. Weeks passed. Slowly, despite herself, Isabella began noticing things she had ignored before. Daniel always helped elderly neighbors without expecting anything back. He secretly paid school fees for struggling children in the neighborhood. Workers at local stores greeted him with deep respect. Even strangers seemed to trust him instinctively. And Sophie absolutely adored him. One rainy afternoon, Isabella picked Sophie up from school after Daniel got delayed at work. While waiting, she overheard two teachers whispering nearby. "That man is incredible." "I know." After he donated anonymously, the entire school renovation became possible. "Do you think anyone realizes who he really is?" Isabella stepped closer immediately. "Who are you talking about?" The teachers looked startled. "Your husband," one admitted quietly. "Daniel Hayes." Confusion filled Isabella's face. "Donated what?" The teachers exchanged nervous looks. "We assumed you knew." Before they could continue, a sleek black SUV pulled into the parking lot. Several men in expensive suits stepped out quickly. One of them opened an umbrella and rushed toward Daniel, who had just arrived. "Sir, the Singapore deal has been finalized." Daniel's expression darkened slightly when he noticed Isabella watching. The suited man instantly stopped talking. Isabella's heart pounded. "Singapore deal? Sir? What was happening?" That night she searched through Daniel's office while he slept. At first she found nothing unusual. Then inside a locked drawer she discovered documents that made her blood run cold. Global investment records. Private corporations. International holdings worth billions. And at the top of every page, Hayes International Group. CEO Daniel Hayes. Her breathing stopped. No. No, it couldn't be. She grabbed another file. Then another. Every document confirmed the impossible truth. Daniel Hayes wasn't poor. He was one of the richest and most powerful men in the world. And somehow, he had hidden it from everyone. Suddenly the bedroom door opened behind her. Daniel stood silently in the doorway. For several seconds neither spoke. Finally Isabella whispered, "Who are you?" Daniel closed the door carefully. "The answer will only make things more complicated. You lied to me. I never said I was poor. You let everyone humiliate me." Pain flickered across his face. "I wanted a normal life for Sophie. After my wife died, I walked away from public attention. Money attracts dangerous people." Isabella stared at him angrily. "So this entire marriage was some kind of experiment?" "No." "Then what was it?" Daniel stepped closer slowly. "The moment I met you, I saw someone drowning beneath pressure and betrayal. I understood that feeling." His voice softened. "And despite everything, you still protected your father, your employees, and your family." She looked away, overwhelmed. "Why didn't you tell me the truth?" "Because I needed to know if anyone could care about me without my money." The words hit harder than she expected. For the first time, Isabella realized how lonely he truly was. Not long after, everything exploded publicly. A financial journalist leaked Daniel's real identity to the media. The entire country went insane. Secret billionaire married Carter heiress. Poor single dad revealed as richest man alive. Daniel Hayes' hidden empire exposed. Reporters surrounded the house day and night. Business leaders suddenly begged for meetings. The same socialites who mocked Isabella now desperately wanted invitations to her parties. But the attention brought danger too. One night Sophie disappeared from her bedroom. Panic erupted instantly. Daniel transformed before Isabella's eyes. The gentle single father vanished. In his place stood a terrifyingly powerful man issuing commands through multiple phones while security teams mobilized across the city. "Lock down every airport," he ordered coldly. "Track all financial activity connected to Victor Lang." Isabella's stomach dropped. Victor Lang was Daniel's former business partner, a ruthless billionaire known for criminal connections. "He took Sophie," she whispered. Daniel's eyes filled with rage. "He warned me this would happen if I returned publicly." For the next 12 hours, Isabella witnessed the terrifying reach of Daniel's power. Governments cooperated. Private intelligence teams moved internationally. Entire companies responded to his commands within minutes. And through all of it, Daniel looked utterly broken. Not angry. Terrified. Because despite all his money, he feared losing the one person he loved most. At Sunrise, they located Sophie inside an abandoned warehouse near the docks. Daniel insisted on going alone. But Isabella refused to stay behind. When they entered the dark warehouse, Victor Lang emerged smiling cruelly. "Well, look at you," Victor mocked. "The invisible king finally returns." Sophie sat tied to a chair nearby crying softly. Daniel's voice became ice-cold. "Let her go." Victor laughed. "You disappeared for years. The board believed you were weak. But now, marrying this woman exposed you." He glanced toward Isabella. "Love makes powerful men vulnerable." Daniel stepped forward dangerously. "You have one chance." Victor pulled a gun instantly. Everything happened in seconds. Sophie screamed. Isabella moved instinctively. A gunshot exploded through the warehouse. Pain ripped through Isabella's shoulder as she collapsed. Daniel's roar echoed violently. Security teams stormed the building immediately afterward. Victor was arrested within minutes. But Daniel ignored everything except Isabella bleeding on the floor. For the first time since meeting him, she saw tears in his eyes. "Stay with me," he whispered desperately. At the hospital, surgery lasted 4 hours. Daniel never left the waiting room. Sophie curled beside him asleep while he sat motionless staring at the floor. The richest man alive looked completely helpless. When Isabella finally woke up, the first thing she saw was Daniel holding her hand tightly. Relief flooded his face instantly. "You scared me." Her voice came out weak. "You cried." He smiled faintly. "Only a little." For several moments they simply looked at each other quietly. Then Isabella whispered the truth she had been afraid to admit. "I don't care about your money." Daniel's eyes softened. "I know." Tears filled her eyes. Isabella kissed him. Not because of wealth. Not because of obligation. But because she truly loved him. 1 year later, their lives looked completely different. Daniel returned publicly as CEO but restructured his empire to spend more time with family. Isabella rebuilt her father's company stronger than ever. Together they launched charities supporting single parents, struggling families, and orphaned children. And Sophie. She became the happiest little girl in the world. One evening, the three of them sat together in their garden watching the sunset. Sophie suddenly smiled mischievously. "So technically Mommy married Daddy when she thought he was broke." Isabella laughed. "Yes, and your father enjoyed every second of confusing me." Daniel grinned calmly. "Maybe a little." Sophie giggled. Then she looked at Isabella seriously. "But you loved him before knowing he was rich, right?" Isabella looked at Daniel quietly. The man she once judged. The man who hid unimaginable power behind kindness. The man who taught her that real wealth wasn't money. It was loyalty, sacrifice, love, and family. She smiled warmly before answering. "Yes, sweetheart. I did." Daniel squeezed her hand gently while the sun disappeared behind the horizon. And for the first time in years, both of them finally understood something priceless. Sometimes life forces us into situations we never wanted, only to lead us exactly where we were always meant to be. So remember this. The person standing beside you during your darkest moment may secretly be the greatest blessing of your life. And sometimes, the richest hearts are hidden behind the simplest lives. If you enjoyed this emotional story, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another unforgettable story. And tell us in the comments, would you marry someone you believed was poor if it meant saving your family? We'll see you in the next video.